Okay, I'm going to show you a picture. I'm going to share it with you, and then we're going to talk about that very briefly. And then you're going to basically go back to yourselves. I'll give you 10 or 12 minutes. The student feedback of teaching is tonight, so we'll talk about that, and I'll give you time for that. Obviously, I want to have a bit of a discussion on Snowden. Everybody's giving me their film study, so good work, everybody. You've all did really well. I haven't finished marking them, but I'll certainly have them for you before the end of the week. We'll have the lecture on Chapter 7. We have a guest speaker tonight, Constable Jack Rice from the Sault Ste. Marie Police Service, who is in their cybercrime unit. So he's going to give us a talk. And then hopefully and importantly, you guys will participate in a Q&A with Constable Rice. That's the whole purpose of his talk, is to get you engaged in what he's going to be talking about. And I did tell him that tonight our topic is social engineering, so he'll be concentrating on that, I hope. All right, then we'll have a breakout session, just like we usually do, with the 5 questions for Chapter 7. And then I received a request from Carrie to put you into breakout sessions with your particular groups for the group presentations, so you can have an opportunity to talk amongst yourselves. I've never done that before. I've always done it randomly when I put you into breakout sessions, but I believe I know I can put people in specific groups, so I'll see if we can work that out as best I can, and that'll take us to the end of the class. All right, so the first thing I want to share with you is a picture, right? And this is a picture I took with my phone. On the weekend, I was watching a Jays game. I'm a baseball fan. So take a look at this picture, and everybody knows, or I presume you know, that there are no fans watching baseball any longer in this season. There are, same thing for hockey and basketball. So, games are being played in fixed locations. Baseball actually isn't fixed locations. Everybody's playing in their home stadiums, with the exception of the Blue Jays, because they're a Canadian team, and there was issues with crossing borders and quarantines. So the Blue Jays are playing in Buffalo. That's where their farm teams is. But having said that, there are no fans for anybody to actually watch the game. Although, believe it or not, they do pipe in music and fan noise and that kind of stuff. And some stadiums actually sell. People can have big photographs of themselves in the stands, right? So if you're watching a game, for instance, Atlanta did that. So if you're watching a game with the Atlanta Braves, you will see a bunch of people sitting in the stands, which are photographs of the people that basically have themselves superimposed as if they're at the game. And I think it's a pretty pricey proposition to do that, but you can watch the game and actually see yourself, a photograph of you sitting in one of those seats. And I presume that, because you only see a fixed number of seats during a game, because it's almost always what you're seeing on your screen now, the pitcher, pitching to the batter, and the few seats behind home plate. So, although there's lots more seats where pitchers are in them, those are pretty much the ones that people would pay the big bucks for if they, for a lark, really wanted to see themselves in the game. But having said this, I watched this game, I think I was watching this on Sunday, and I want you to take a look at these ads that are behind home plate. They change almost all the time. They're advertising that obviously sponsors want to basically be seen on TV, because they know that when the ball game is being telecast, that there's going to be a lot of times when the picture is exactly what you're seeing here, the pitcher to the batter. So take a look at what you see in these signs behind me, and so put up your hands, tell me what you see, right? Which is relevant to our class. Anybody? William?
Hello?
Yep, William, go ahead.
Yeah, there's Acronis, which is like a kind of antivirus cloud backup. And then I don't know what Mimecast is, but it looks to be for email businesses. So it's all about kind of cyber protection.
Actually, yeah, so there you go. William gets both of them, so that's great. So exactly, right? So I'm watching the baseball game, right? And and I don't very often read the advertisements behind home plate. I mean, unless it's boring, and honestly, between pitches, sometimes it's boring watching ball. I didn't say that out loud, but it's the way it is, right? And so I'm reading it and I'm going, well, look at that. I mean, here are there's 3 boards behind us. Again, these sponsors pay big money for this, and 2 of them deal with cyber protection. right? Acronis is exactly what William said. I looked it up. It's a company that provides cybersecurity for firms, and Mimecast is a company that businesses use if they want an elevated cybersecurity protection for business emails. That's what they deal with, all right? So I thought that was pretty cool. So there we go. All right, so having said that, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to step out of the class for the next 10 to 12 minutes. You guys are supposed to, at this point, fill out the student feedback, the SFTs is what they're called now, of teaching. I'm sure all of you have done this. This is an upper year course. So you know, I think there's 17 or 18 questions. There you can have a score of 1 to 6. 6 is a score if the question isn't applicable to what you're dealing with, and there's pretty much no questions that fall into that category. So you're going to be scoring the SFTs from 1 to 5. 1 as in, why am I wasting my time, you know, on a Tuesday evening in this class? And 5 is, woohoo, this is kind of cool, and I'm learning something, and this is what I expected to learn, right? These things, a lot of faculty don't like these kind of things. You know, they don't necessarily want to be scored by students to some degree, but you know, I do. Right? I've always liked these because, first off, my scores are usually pretty good, which I appreciate. But more than that, you know, there's a lot of constructive comments on what I'm doing, and it's nice to see that, you know, particularly students think that the way they're being taught is working, right? And that's really, really important, you know, in this semester and the previous spring semester, because this is a really good way for the administration, the dean's office, the president's office, whatever, to see if what we're doing by way of online teaching is doing the job, right? I mean, you know, clearly my preference would be to see you all personally, face to face, and interact with you in the same room. You know, that's obviously everybody's preference, I would think. But, you know, having said that, I think we're doing the best we can with what we have to deal with. And, you know, and I'm using Zoom is a platform that I actually pay for personally, which the university doesn't, but I do it, and I do it because it has a number of features that I like, including things like the breakout rooms and what have you. So, you know, the fact that we do this online gives us the chance for me to talk to you, to give you an opportunity to participate, and your level of participation in this class has been great. I really do appreciate it. You do the breakout rooms, you know, watching the videos as part of the PowerPoints, all those kind of things. I think that, you know, we've pretty much done the best we can in the circumstances. You guys obviously have other classes with other faculty members or professors who maybe do it differently, and maybe if somebody does something better than I'm doing, then please tell me. I appreciate it. Anything that you have to say, I take very seriously. The administration looks at these things to see, again, how well the courses are being taught, and particularly how well the faculty are doing their job in teaching them. So hopefully you think I'm doing that for you. All right, so listen, I'm gonna bug out of here for a few minutes. I'll let you do this, and I'll be back in about 10 or 11 minutes. Oh, Carrie, you had your hand up?
I just went to the portal. I'm not seeing the link for that. Normally it's on this.
All right, well, before, all right, well, I mean, it's something, I didn't post it, obviously, the registrar's office, Marasco, posted it. You guys take a look and tell me if you have a problem finding it.
Miles, it was
Yes.
in under academic in your Algoma U academics, and it's under course feedback
Okay,
on
all
your Algoma U site.
right, Carrie, take a look at that then. I'll wait to hear that, in fact.
I see it. I see it.
You good? All right, guys, so listen, I'll see you in about 10 minutes, okay? All right. All right, guys, that wasn't quite 12 to 15 minutes. 15 minutes, I think, is the outside. Anybody need more time? I'm glad to give you a few more minutes if you need it. Are we good? All right, guys. All right. Okay, so I sent you guys an email today. I thought that although the primary discussion for the purposes of participation is hopefully a little bit later, but an hour from now after Constable Rice has talked to you, I thought that we would still talk about the film, Snowden. So anybody have any comments or questions about Snowden? You've all seen it, obviously. So I appreciate some input from you guys. Madison?
Watching the movie, like I was surprised because like I didn't know too much on that situation or like his story in general. So seeing the movie, because I hadn't seen it before, my parents have seen it, and when I told them I had to watch it, they got all excited that I'm actually watching it. But it was actually like a really good movie, and like his paranoia was like justified because like I didn't realize how much like they can actually see and they can access from your laptop, especially like when they can turn on your camera without like the light coming on, because like when you're on obviously a video call, you have a light turn on your laptop, or at least I do, and like the fact that they can turn that on and see through it without giving you any notification is like extremely creepy to me.
Sure it is, absolutely. Lexine?
Yeah, I found it very strange that they were even able to put like tracking information and devices in like wells, stuff like that, and the extent to which when I did some further research on the topic, and I found out that one of the major reasons why he probably even chose to go to Hong Kong to release information is that the laws that are present in Hong Kong is much more strict as relates to hacking of personal information compared to the US. So that was quite new.
Sure, sure. Kate?
Hi. I found it crazy that he had to go hide in Russia away from the government because he was afraid that, well, he knew he wouldn't get a fair trial and public trial because of the government confidentiality. So I thought that was kind of crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. He's still there, right? And what's crazy too is remember that Obama was president when this happened, and yet he still feared retaliation by the United States government under the, a charge under the Espionage Act, which is very serious. Shivani?
So basically, it was really sad to know that the government agencies like CIA and NSA like to use the statement that information are classified as a mean to cover up their wrongdoings. Like, it's not supposed to be like that, but I realize that they like to use that defense, and it's really sad.
Sure. Tyler? Tyler, hand still up?
Hello?
Go for it.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi. I had reflected on the actions taken in this film by the companies in question. I would have liked to see some legal action taken and possibly some changes in regulations and policies in light of these circumstances and on behalf of Snowden and his complaints.
So
I'm
what,
not sure if any legal action has been taken.
so what kind of legal action are you thinking about on behalf of Snowden?
Well, I was thinking, I'm sorry, I'm having severe internet problems at the moment, but sorry, to me, I would have liked to actually perhaps see him use a whistleblower system and seeing this go perhaps to court to change some of the regulations that they have on behalf of privacy and policies and how they use the programs that they use, and just regulations on how they use it within their own systems, perhaps through the I forget the secure courts that they use. Was it PISA or
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, even through that as well. Anything that would have possibly led to a change in regulations and policies on how they can use their equipment and programs.
Okay, good, good. Carrie.
I just had a question. In the part of the film when he's discussing about the unlikelihood of not having a public or fair trial, he was referring to a building, and I couldn't catch what the building or the agency was in that building. It was a hotel window.
Oh
Anybody
gosh,
else?
I don't know. I mean, I presumed it was the NSA, but I mean, is anybody else can answer Carrie's question?
So are you talking about when he was like kind of in the robot thing talking to an auditorium?
No, it was at the point where he was talking to the reporters about how he did not think that he would get a public trial or whatnot, and he was talking about how being made to disappear, and it was like the building across the way was what he
Oh, sorry, no.
pointed out from the hotel. So it's like I tried to figure out what building that was referring to, and I just missed it.
Yeah. Anybody else have an idea? Sorry, Carrie, we all missed that.
Okay.
All right, Val. Val, your hand is still up?
Sorry, I had a problem unmuting. I apologize.
No problem.
Technical difficulties. So I was just wondering, like, I know this is set in the US and I know he didn't go through the whistleblower and the NSA and what have you. How does this actually relate to the Canadian version of how things would go here versus how the States went?
Well, that's a really good question, and I actually haven't really thought about that directly. I mean, we have a system in the federal government that is somewhat comparable to the whistleblower system, but it's I think it's probably comparable when it comes to the level of protection that's provided. I mean, basically we're dealing with both federal governments who are there to function for the people, and that's why whistleblowers are allowed to do what they do, because they are supposed to be able to, obviously, announce something that they see is going wrong, but it doesn't protect. Obviously, for Snowden, he didn't think it offered the protection that he wanted, and some of that is because when you make this kind of public announcement, you're restricted on how it's disseminated under the purposes of the whistleblower legislation. We don't have an Espionage Act per se, but we do have the federal government does have the authority under the peace, order, and good government provisions of the Constitution to protect the government and to protect the Canadian citizens. So I would think, however, that there would be, just as there was a charge against Snowden under the Act, we would still pursue, and it's probably a criminal code offense in our case, and some kind of a charge against him. And the thing is, you have to remember, and this is what I was alluding to when I was talking about the fact that he did this when Obama was the president, and he still went into hiding. Clearly, over the course of the last 3.5 years, there would never be a prospect for him to come out of Moscow with Trump in office. Trump beats his chest about being such a tough guy. What happens when Biden is in office is hard to say, but chances are it still won't change. And who can tell me why that is? Why, as much as we saw what he did, as much as we all have sympathy, nobody has empathy really, but we have sympathy for what he did, why he did it. He certainly did it from an altruistic point of view. He didn't make any money off of doing it. It wasn't that kind of thing. He wasn't trying to hack anybody's networks for the purposes of personal gain. He didn't do that. He did it truly because he wanted the American public to know how much surveillance there was into their everyday activities, and obviously he did it very, very well. But why would in the White House? Why would a federal government pretty much never give up the position that has to be prosecuted, which obviously counters Tyler's suggestion that somebody bring an action on his behalf? Why would that be? Anybody? William?
It leaves a door open for other people to do it. Basically saying, don't go through a whistleblower policy, like the one that we have, and basically just shout it out at the rooftops of what's happening behind closed doors.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, no federal institution, government can ever let anybody have a free hand in the release of classified information, right? Particularly information that's collected by the intelligence services, the NSA, the CIA in Canada, the CSIS, and what have you. Lexine, your hand is up. Are you still? You good?
Yeah, not only that, sir, they can also use the defense that he broke the act in which he was binding to, basically, and that, as he was saying in the video, also they use terrorism as a sort of defense for everything. So I guess he will be screwed either ways if he comes back.
True. Tom, your hand's up. Tom? Carrie, your hand's back up. Oh, Tom, sorry, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I just wanted to say the U.S. government take this information seriously. So they use this method to search for terrorist informations like that. So they feel Snowden's information will have been like a terrorist threat or release of classified information.
Yeah, it's treated very, very seriously. And as Lexine was saying, you know, when Snowden did it, no matter what his altruistic reasons may well have been, he still was breaking the law, right? So you have to keep that in mind. Daniela, you have your hand up? Try again. Daniela? All right, back to you, Carrie.
And I think too, it'd be that the government would basically be saying, okay, Snowden was completely correct, and that what the States was doing was, you know, against the American people. They weren't doing it in the means for just protecting national interest. So to give them pardon or to not prosecute would basically be the government saying they were wrong, that they were, you know, not respecting individuals' privacies.
Yeah, so it's a really good idea for all of you when you see a movie like this, which Oliver Stone, he produced it. So, and he's always very controversial. He always takes a position and sticks with it, and then, you know, does everything he can to promote his personal position, which is obviously in support of Snowden. But it's always really important to keep the broader picture in mind, particularly when you're dealing with a country's basically national intelligence agencies. Anybody have anything else they want to say before we move to the lecture? Great participation, good guys. Anything? All right, guys.
Miles?
Yes.
For our group presentations, I have a quick question. Are we doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as in group 1 does topic 1?
No, I actually, what I did is I asked everybody, I gave everybody an invitation to send me their first 2 choices.
Okay.
Which topics they wanted to do, and then I would try to accommodate everybody. Now, having said that, did nobody get that email? Only because I say this because I didn't receive any responses from the group.
I didn't get it.
Okay. Oh, all right. So here, great. So I mean, obviously, whatever happened, maybe I didn't send it. So here's the deal. So pick your first choice and your second choice for the topics that I posted on Moodle. Right. Send them to me, and again, I will try to accommodate you. Hopefully, everybody doesn't pick the same one, kind of thing. So do that, you know, sooner rather than later. So tonight or tomorrow, so I can then make sure that everybody has the topic, hopefully, that they want to actually handle for the presentations. Okay. So, Kate, thanks for bringing that up. I appreciate it. I should have noticed it, and I didn't get any emails from anybody. So that's clearly my fault. So let's see if we can get everybody into the proper groups and their topics.
Sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
But we already started our group number.
Oh, did you? All right. Well, listen, that's fine. All right, so send me an email just confirming that. And again, I'll work with everybody to again, try to make sure you get a topic that you want.
That's the same thing for us, sir.
Okay.
Cyberbullying.
Well, again, everybody send that to me. Well, I'll tell you what, if there's 2 groups that have done that. Anybody else done that? Here's the easiest way to handle this. Everybody do that, right? Look at this, we can do this on the fly. All right, so let's just do that then. So instead of choosing topics and whatever, do your group numbers with the topics that I posted on Moodle in that order, right? That way everybody, everybody has separate topics and you know exactly what they are. Okay, so let's give that a shot. Thanks everybody for that input, I appreciate it. So just look at your group number, look at your topic, and what I'll do is tomorrow I'll just simply send out an email to everybody confirming, group 1 this topic, group 2 that topic. I'll just confirm it all for everybody just to make sure that nobody is doing a topic that overlaps with anybody else. Okay, Carrie, your hand's up again.
No, it's not up, sorry.
Okay, you're good. All right, guys, so let's go to the lecture then, and again, I'll email everybody tomorrow on the topics. All right. So tonight's lecture, it deals with Chapter 7, Deception is the Intent of Social Engineering. I have condensed this lecture to a great degree simply because we have the constable from the Sault Ste. Marie Police Service coming and joining us at 8 o'clock, right? So if we don't get through it all, hopefully we do, then I can complete it either after his talk, or we'll work something else out, okay? But let's talk about social engineering. So social engineering, just so you, and I'm sure you gathered this from reading the chapter, is where a lot of hacking, we talked about cybercrime and cybersecurity, deals with hacking into systems, and going phishing and super phishing and the back door into operations that people have with respect to the internet and the web. That's not social engineering. Social engineering is not the attack on the machinery, so to speak, but the attack on the people, social being society. And that's what social engineering is, right? And that's why the very first line given to us in the PowerPoint is people are the weak link, right? And that is what that's what social engineers do to gain access to the information that they want to have in order to, for whatever purpose they're gathering that information to make money and more often than not, or to do damage and install malware and what have you. But the focus of social engineering is people. And, and the way that social engineers do this, and that's a very fancy term for people who are essentially, criminals. But the way these social engineers do is they basically, deal with people's fear, empathy, loneliness, generosity, and greed, the kind of things. So that's why, it's so incredibly easy for these people to get into the lives of their targets because they play to their emotions. And what happens is that when they play to their emotions, people's barriers go down for the most part. They become engaged with the person who's doing it. And to a great degree, depending on how sophisticated the engineering process is, they become attached to people who have insinuated themselves into their lives. And it's very, very true that when they are discovered to have been manipulated by social engineers, they tend to deny it. Even when they've given, and this happens a lot on love scams. Honeypot scams is another term, although that's a pretty derogatory term, where people get involved with somebody on a dating website or whatever it may well be, and the person doing it, the social engineer, is somebody who is totally not the person they make themselves out to be to the person who is looking for love, if that's what they're doing, right? And then what usually happens is that they engender a relationship, right? They become close to them. They very quickly tell them that they love them. They send them pictures. They tell them how much they want to spend their lives with them, and then people are lonely, right? And they have this magic connection now, through their monitor to somebody who they seem to feel cares about them. that's a very gripping kind of emotion to have. And that's why what will happen over the course of time when trust has been built, that the scammer, really, the social engineer, will say, for instance, that they've lost their passport, or they can't afford travel to come and see them. Please send me money, to do this and do that and do everything else, so we can come and be together, right? And what happens is that there's just a ton of people who do this, and they send money. They send money to people they really actually don't know, but they believe that they know and have fallen in love with. And what happens is that when it turns out to be a scam, when the police actually eventually tell them that, look, the person you're dealing with isn't the person you thought you were dealing with, your money is gone, it's been stolen. They either try to say, well, no, this person loves me, I still believe that, or they're so embarrassed by what's happened to them that they don't tell anybody that they've lost all their money, right? So it's a very kind of tricky thing. So we're going to watch a couple of short videos on social engineering and the tricks of the trade, and then take it from there.
Traditional hacking aims to compromise the security settings of IT systems and applications.
You guys hear that?
Social engineering attackers attempt to exploit the users of these technologies by claiming to be employees, vendors, or support personnel to try to trick the workers.
Can you guys hear that? I'm trying hearing it.
Yes, sir, we can hear.
Yeah, we can
You
hear
hear
it.
it okay? All right, good, thank you. Okay.
People are trusting and willing to help others, and the attackers use that to their advantage by deceiving users into revealing information that compromises data security. Traditional protection from malware and viruses will not protect you from a social engineering attack. Once they gather bits and pieces of the organization, they'll be able to put the puzzle together and exploit the business. One technique is phishing emails, which are typically the most successful form of social engineering. This is where hackers will send out emails to their victims in hopes of gaining sensitive information by tricking them into clicking a malicious link, giving the hacker access to information. Another technique is physical breaches. This is where the hacker does an impersonation of someone else in order to gain access to a secure location. Attackers can also use the technique of pretext calling. This is where an attacker makes up a scenario to obtain the information they need. Pretext calling often requires trust to be formed between the attacker and the victim. Don't be fooled by social engineering tactics. Be sure to train employees to follow safe security measures in the event of an attack. Employees should always be cautious when sharing personal information on social media platforms. Never open an email that looks suspicious or let a stranger connect to your wireless network. Don't give strangers personal information until you can verify where they are calling from. Review security policies to stay up to date with the latest social engineering techniques. Always use a paper shredder to properly dispose of your printed material. It is important to treat security awareness and training as an investment. For more information on social engineering,
you could say cyber attackers hack computers and social engineers hack people. Now we're going to show you some of the tricks they use to try to get you to fall for their con. They seemed so generous. Students from Cambridge University volunteering to help refugees from the Middle East.
They had spent ages liking Cambridge Facebook pages, and so they've established this trust.
But Cambridge University's Kieran Lavelle says the charity was fake, designed to collect money for malicious hackers, using real students to spread the word about their fake site.
We were the ones that were sharing it. It was our own students and staff, because why not? Why wouldn't you? It's to help refugees.
The long game, a social engineering attack in dating scams. On LinkedIn, when you connect to a contact who's actually spying on you or your company, like this fake account for a fake person, Katie Jones. Her face generated by artificial intelligence.
The long play is the one that will work.
But the short play works well too. The request from your boss's email account asking you to wire money on short notice. The infamous, "There's a problem with your account" message. Time to verify your password. The fake resumes and job offers. And even further, sextortion messages that use just a little bit of real info, one of your passwords from a data breach, to convince you they really do have sensitive video or images of you.
There is no compromise, there is no malware, but the fact that it's got something, your password. Now, the passwords are probably old, but everyone reuses passwords.
What can you do?
What they're trying to do is get your emotions high. So I'm happy because I've got the discount, or I'm a bit worried because I've got a parking ticket or a speeding ticket, right?
Social engineer Jenny Radcliffe has manipulated her way into big companies around the world to help them learn about social engineering attacks.
When someone mentions money, when someone asks you to do something for them, when someone asks you to do something in a hurry, all of those things should be red flags.
She also encourages you to update your devices when the updates come in. Don't wait. Use different passwords for every account, and use strong ones that you file in a password manager so you don't have to remember them. Start with your most important accounts, she says.
Do 3, and then do 3 next week, and the next 3. And just keep it, it's a hygiene really, just keep that up to date. It seems like a lot of trouble, but it's a lot less trouble than being hacked.
Now, you'll want to see our other story we did on social engineering and the one big thing that you can do to help protect yourself. In the meantime, Karen says, if you do get hit, don't worry, it happens to just about everybody. But the important thing is to report it right away so someone can do something about it as soon as possible. Archer News Network, making sense of your
Okay, guys, Constable Rice has joined us, so Jack, sit tight. We're going to do the rest of the lecture, and then we'll call on you to give your talk. So thanks for being with us. All right, guys. So again, we're talking about techniques that take advantage of people's trust and emotions. We just went through that, right? And dealing with people's emotions is a very effective way in manipulating them, right? And often they do things that are against their better judgment because their emotions, again, fundamentally things like loneliness. Are very, very powerful emotions to deal with. We have in your textbook, you have a really cool example of a real case dealing with somebody who ingratiated themselves with an administrative assistant to a CEO in a company. This is a Canadian case, you have it, where in fact the social engineer basically contacted the executive assistant to the CEO. They had already established a very similar email that looked like the CEO's email account. They had done their research to make sure that they understood expressions in that particular business that were acceptable. Things like whether a company says when they receive funds, whether they're deposited or transfers or what have you. So they got the language or the lingo down appropriately. And then what they did is basically masquerading as the CEO, they emailed the executive assistant, obviously convincingly, because the assistant believed it was the CEO, and requested a wire transfer to an account for the purposes of whatever business allegedly the CEO was out on at the end of that day, right? So that's one of the ways that it works, and obviously you would target somebody who has access to information that is valuable. Right? We've talked about pretexting already. It's obviously used by attackers where people gain acceptance by a fake story. Again, the love scams, the honeypot things are really common in that regard. Letter scams are common on the internet. Basically, they employ a variety of what are called TTPs, tactics, techniques, and procedures. So you see that a lot in the material we've talked about. Basically, you have phone scams, right, that are effective on a global scale. And very often victims are tricked into paying for fake solutions to fake problems. So for instance, somebody, and this happened to Microsoft, and I'm not sure we have a video on that or not, where basically somebody alleging they were from Microsoft got a hold of somebody and said that they've seen their activity online and there's malware been installed, and here's what you need to do to respond to it. Actually, the next video we do have is dealing with that very scam. So let's watch this one.
Okay, so sorry, who are you?
Sir, my name is Jenny Williams. I'm from Microsoft Windows.
Okay.
This is an urgent checkup call for your computer, as we have found several problems in it. So if you can just turn on your computer, I can show you the problems which I'm talking about.
I'm actually in front of my computer. What's wrong with my computer?
First of all, you're having a computer that is having the Microsoft Windows in it, right?
Yes.
And you are the main user of it?
Absolutely.
Okay, and it is your personal one, I believe.
Yes.
The work one. So let me tell you, once you're going online or using the internet, certain malicious and junk files are getting into the hard disk without your knowledge.
People are getting into my hard disk? How are they doing that?
What?
People are getting into my hard disk? That you just said people are accessing my hard disk in my computer. Like, how are they doing that?
No. Once you're going online in the internet, certain malicious files are getting into the hard disk of your computer without your knowledge.
Without my oh my God! How are you guys knowing this?
Because your computer is connected to our global server and it is sending us error and warning messages. That is the reason I'm calling you, so that I can show you those files and help you to block them.
Okay, let's get rid of them.
Let's do what?
Let's do it. Let's get rid of them. I don't want these things on my computer. That's terrible.
Are you serious about this call? Are you making fun?
No, you're telling me that there's these things on my computer. Like, I don't want them on there.
Your computer is important to you, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so if you could just turn on the computer, I can show you those files. First of all, I will verify this call to you. This is a verification process so that you can talk to a different. 1 second, sir. Yes.
Okay, my computer's on. What do I do next?
Just look at your keyboard in the left bottom corner of the keyboard. Do you find the CTRL control key?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, so this is a verification process so that I can verify myself to you that you're talking to a technician from Microsoft, okay?
Okay, cool. Oh, you mean the one next to the control? You mean the one next to the control button?
Exactly.
Okay, hold on. I've never seen this button before.
So you can try it out. I can show you the problems, okay? Just right side beside to the CTRL control key, just beside to the control key. Which key do you find?
I find key, and it says, "Stop calling me, you fucking con artist."
You are a prostitute, okay?
Your mum's a prostitute! What? How'd you...
Shivani, your hand is up.
Oh yes, I wanted to add something as it relates to this video that even here in Canada, like these scammers, they have a tendency to attack like new international students who have just arrived in Canada because they know that like these students don't really know what is really going on in their society. So I heard that like they get these contacts from the phone company and it was really getting out of hand, especially like last year, September, where Algoma had to send out like an email to students telling them that when someone calls you and tell you that something is wrong with your SIN number, you shouldn't take it seriously because they're all scammers. But the way how they do it, like it's very real. It sounds realistic and like it could catch any student. Because I have a friend, and these same scammers, they got caught by it and they gave them her money.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, especially for international students, who are here, they're new in the country, and obviously they're incredibly vulnerable. Right, so they would be a perfect target for this kind of thing. So thanks for that, Shivani. Okay, so who are the social engineers? So there are 3 common forms of. Oh, we have more hands up. Hang on, guys. Let's do this. Okay, so who else had their hands up? Oh, they're down now. All right, guys. All right, so there are 3. At least according to the text. All right, Daniela?
To what Shavani was saying, I've actually been receiving like random phone calls from different numbers.
Right.
And when I answer it, it's the same thing. Like they say someone has been using your SIM card to open up bank accounts and like credit accounts and you're in so much debt and stuff like that. And the first time I got the call, I actually like kind of believed it. Like I was listening to them, but then my sister told me that it was like fraud that they were doing.
Exactly. Constable Rice, take notes. there will be a list for you. Anybody else? Okay. All right. So common forms of hackers. The text refers to white hats, gray hats, and black hats. So white hat hackers are ones that are actually hired to do that job, to basically hack into systems, to look for vulnerabilities, and are paid to do that, right? So they're either employees or they're outside consultants, and so they're white hat, as in they're the good hat, for the purposes of examining weaknesses in systems. Gray hat are people who access networks without permission, so they're not like white hat where they're hired to do so, but when they do in fact hack these systems, they do report it to the employer, right? And so if you think about this, what would Snowden be, white hat or gray hat? Anybody?
Gray, probably.
Yes, gray, right? Based on that definition, he would be gray hat, right? And then black hat is exactly as it sounds, someone who acts with malice to hack networks. All right, so those are considered the three very, very, very broad categories of those who commit cybercrime to a great degree. Social engineering is also used by fugitives or terrorists to avoid custody. They share information. They recruit people to join them. They use it for transporting weapons and what have you. So that's incredibly important to keep in mind. And we also have, of course, state-sponsored social engineering, which is done by governments for the purposes of them conducting their own hacking, essentially, to gather information, which is basically conducting espionage, right? So it's not just those people who you think of as being criminals who do these kind of things, right? What are the tactics used by social engineers? Well, there's reconnaissance. We mentioned this earlier. So they watch people. It's easy to gather information from social media, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it's going to be. You can gather a ton of information. We've talked about this in prior classes, where you can build a scenario of somebody's life, really, which obviously you can use when you're basically targeting them with respect to some emotion. So that kind of information is very valuable, basically. There's also things like phone calls or in-person visits that you're alleging that you're there to test their security protocols, when in fact what you're doing is gathering information and ways to get into their systems. What are the common techniques, right? So we've already talked about this to a great degree. So there's old and new, and there's always going to be new techniques that come into being as the old ones are often discovered and checks and balances are put in place to protect against them. But there's about 12 or 15 examples in your textbook, and I've only got 4 of them here for you. Things called advanced fee scams. So what these are is where you receive money from somebody, for whether it's a lottery or it's some kind of a contest, or what it may well be, or maybe even it's in the purchase of something, and you're basically told that you've paid too much, and they seek a refund as a function of that, and the refund is something that so you actually don't receive the money that you've won, but the refund is real money that they ask you to send. Baiting is obvious, opening links for malware. So there's all kinds of things that you'll receive by way of emails that you will see that there's usually a hyperlink that they ask you to click on to go to do something, to gather information or what it's going to be. But what that obviously does is infects your computer. Conversion theft is where somebody buys something. Obviously, they use real money to do that, and it doesn't arrive to the person who bought it. It's sent somewhere else. That's converting something. And obviously, fraudulent websites where basically goods are advertised for sale and never delivered. AutoTrader is an example of this, and most of you probably know what it is. AutoTrader's been around for a long time. It was around before before it was digitized. It used to go into corner smoking gift shops, variety stores, those kind of things, and buy one of these things for, I forgot how much they used to be, $2-3, and it would be like a small little phone book of people who were selling used vehicles essentially. And it was a really good source of gaining, gaining some insight into what you may want to buy, how much it would cost, and what have you. Now it's digitized. And so, you go online and it's pretty sophisticated. And I know that the people who owned Auto Trader initially made a lot of money when they sold it to the company that decided to take it online. But here's what happens sometimes. So, and it usually happens with people who are looking for older classic cars. And what they do is they see these cars that are for sale. And it could be Mercedes SL class, or it could be an older Beamer, it could be any number of classic cars. And they're kind of it's a toy, really. And what happens is, and this happens on Auto Trader, and I'm sure they try to protect against this kind of thing, but they don't. But what happens is you'll find, if you're looking for, say you're looking for a Mercedes 450 SL, a 1979 one. I want to use that because I used to have one. So anyway, you look at that, and those cars, when I bought mine back in 1991 for just under $8,000, and it was just 10, 11 years old, and I could see it. I went to the person who sold it to me. I liked what I saw. I gave them cash, and away I went. I don't have it anymore, unfortunately. But having said that, if I wanted to buy another one, all right, and I think about this from time to time, maybe I'd like to get that car back. I mean, it's something that I really enjoy driving. So if you go on Auto Trader and you can look, you look under Mercedes and you look under SL, and it takes you to those pictures of cars that are available. And if you look at one, and these are convertibles, and they're pretty snazzy cars. So if you look, and you get a pretty good idea of what they're worth, right? So a 1979 450 SL Mercedes with a decent amount of mileage on it, so certainly less than 200,000 clicks. Anything around 100,000 clicks is reasonable, because remember, these cars now are 40 years old. Hopefully they've only ever been driven in the summer, never winter driven, that kind of thing. But if they have like 100,000 clicks on them, then you're going to pay somewhere between 15 and 25, depending on the kind of shape it's in, the body and the engine and what have you, right? But every once in a while, you'll go and you'll see, and there's one there for 10,000 bucks, right? And it looks great. And, and it will be, it'll be being sold by somebody who, even though you look, for instance, for cars in Ontario, it'll be from somebody who's in Quebec or New Brunswick, that kind of thing. And if I was inclined to buy it, I'd contact them and say, you know what, I really like this. I think this is a great price. And during the transaction to buy it, what will happen is that there will be a request, by them to me to send them at least a sizable deposit to buy this car, to hold the car, because it's such a great price. The car does not exist in the real world. Right, the people who are, and again, it's on Auto Trader. You would think it would be legitimate and somewhat vetted, but they can't vet everybody, and they don't. I don't think vet everybody to make sure they actually are the people who actually own these cars. I don't think they ask you for ownership papers. I don't know, but I doubt it. So having said that, that's the kind of thing that happens. There's it's a very legitimate website. It's used by thousands of people every year. They advertise themselves as being the place to go to buy used cars. And yet you can still go on that website and somebody will scam you, right? And get goods that you would pay money for and actually never get delivered. All right, guys, let's watch this quick video. One more slide and then we're almost done.
Online shopping fraud is on the rise, and criminals are getting more and more skilled in creating seemingly authentic copycat sites. In 2017 alone, consumers lost £58 million to online shopping scams. In order to avoid falling victim to online fraud, it's crucial that you know how to recognise a scam website when you see one. Here are 6 tips to follow when you shop online. Don't click links that are in the body of an email or a text. Find websites the long way round instead, via Google or a verified social media account. And be wary of Google Ads. Scam companies sometimes pay to appear at the top of Google searches. Create multiple email addresses for different purposes. You might want a private one that you never give away online, another for sites you trust, and one more for sites you've never used before. If you receive a spam email, don't just delete it. Marking it as junk will train your inbox to recognize unwanted emails. Check your URL carefully. Alarm bells should ring if it doesn't match the content, contains spelling errors, or is absurdly long. Look carefully at the URL and watch out for sneaky font tricks. Scammers might use similar letters from other alphabets to mimic legitimate sites. Does the website have a green padlock and HTTPS in the toolbar? If it does, this is a good sign, as it means the site is SSL certified and the connection is encrypted. Never enter card details or passwords on a site that doesn't have a green padlock and HTTPS in the toolbar. But be aware that the site using the encryption could still be untrustworthy. Lastly, check that the contact and copyright information looks legitimate. Authentic sites should have a phone number and often a social media presence, and the copyright should be up to date and showing the legal brand name. For more information on scam websites, check out our full...
All right, guys. And lastly, how to prevent social engineering, and hopefully Constable Rice talks a bit about this, right? So education, communication, which is what we are doing here, is important. If it's a business that is subject to this kind of attack, obviously let the employees know what's going on, that they are aware of the various ways that in fact they could be probed and targeted. Build awareness of the TTPs, basically communicate benefits, awareness, prevention, and obviously clearly report suspicious behavior. So if it's a personal kind of thing, report it to somebody who's in authority or the police. If it's a company, if you're an employee, obviously report it to whoever is above you in the business. All right, so this is our last very short video, and then we're going to hear from Constable Rice. So let's watch this, and then off we go.
A social engineering attack is when someone tries to trick you into doing something dangerous, like downloading malicious software or sharing personal information such as username and password or your credit card details. How to identify social engineering emails. Social engineering attacks typically happen through email, ads, or on websites that look similar to sites you already use. Social engineering emails look like they're from a legitimate source, such as your bank or Google, but they're not. Never send personal information over email unless you're absolutely sure who you're sending it to. Don't use the reply address in the message, since it can be forged. Instead, visit the official website of the company in question and find a different contact address. Legitimate sites, like Google or your bank, will never send unsolicited messages asking for your password or financial details. If you get an email asking for this information, be suspicious. And don't download any attachments unless you are sure of their origin. How to avoid social engineering attacks on the web. A website cannot detect if your machine is compromised. If a site says you have a security issue or infection and asks you to download software, be sure to download the software from a reputable download source. When visiting a web page, pay close attention to the page's URL. Attackers will often make this URL look similar to a genuine site. Before you enter any personal information on a web page, check the URL to make sure it starts with HTTPS. The S indicates that the connection is encrypted and secure. Look for browser warnings. Some browsers, like Google Chrome, will warn you if the site you're trying to visit is suspected of social engineering or malware. Pay attention to these warnings and think twice before entering personal information. For more tips on how to protect yourself from social engineering attacks, visit the Google Safety Center.
All right, guys, so there you go. So that's it for the lecture. As I indicated earlier, I wanted to try to get this done by 8, so when Constable Rice is joining us, but it ran a little bit long. So I apologize to the Constable for making him wait. But hello? Hi, Jack.
I had unmute there, sorry.
There you go. Good stuff. Thank you. Now, how did you want to do this? I think I can make you the host if you like. I can certainly Did you plan on sharing anything with the class?
At this point, I don't know what I would share.
Okay. I mean, I meant by way of video or PowerPoint or any of those kind of things.
Right. No, I haven't done anything like that. Most of the stuff I had, it sounds like you've covered a lot of it already.
Okay.
You've kind of gone over a 101 kind of version of things, which is what I was going to do. And is there a good avenue to go down at this point?
Listen, everybody can see you, which is great. Thank you for the video. So it's perfectly great if you just want to give us a bit of your talk, just as you are now, and then we'll do some Q&A with the students, and I've told them to expect that. So let's try that.
Okay. So as stated, I'm Jack Rice. I'm the officer in charge, Detective Sergeant with the Sault Ste. Marie Police Service's Technological Crime Unit. So we're a small unit within our service. We're one of the only ones in this immediate area, and that includes Upper Michigan as well. Just giving you the history of it, we're backed by the provincial strategy. That's where a lot of our funding comes from. It's from the province and provincial strategy, and a lot of it is child exploitation oriented. And that's important for us because obviously they provide a lot of our money that we're going to use to purchase equipment and training. But more than that, a lot of the resources that we're able to tap into that we use in all sorts of investigations and not just child exploitation come from the private sector, from tech companies, and they're working on the aspect of child exploitation, but then as law enforcement, we can often use that to tap into other areas. So like a short while ago, it was brought up about gray hats and white hats and black hats. So in many respects, many of us in this field are gray hats to some extent. We're trying to do a white hat thing, but sometimes in our capacities, we're going in different modes. And I don't do that here too much. I have the training and the capability to do that. However, because of a small office that we're limited on that. My focus here locally is child exploitation for the most part. And we'll do other investigations from there as well. We do get a ton of complaints on a regular basis as to a lot of the material you were talking about today. Probably on a daily basis, we see 2 or 3 on a regular workday that will come into our front desk or get phoned in about somebody being scammed over the telephone, over the internet. You can probably appreciate that with COVID and everybody being locked in and more people being on their devices, that amplified even more. You have to understand the complexity of some of these setups. I'll take you back to an example. This goes back to about 1.5 years ago, and I was working on a scam that somebody got taken for over web banking, and I won't get into which bank it was. Their security probably wasn't the utmost at the time. The individual did get hacked to a degree. They never lost any money, but I decided to chase that trail. And when I chased it, it ended up, it was an email scam. So they got a hold of the individual that I was talking with, that I know, and they asked that individual to send money to wire transfer money, e-transfer money to this email address. And it was an email address that they're familiar with. And the email that they received initially telling them to do this was also one-off from somebody that they actually knew, and obviously was not. So they proceeded to send the money. The bank actually didn't transfer it, which is why they never lost the money. But I traced it locally to a local branch, and then it got transferred right out to BC, and then from BC it got transferred out to the Ukraine, just like that. Like I said, they never lost the money. I don't know how the financial institution, maybe they lost the currency or not, but the individual that I know did not. The funny part is, so in my chasing that down, I managed to do a lot of research on my end through a lot of connections that, due to being the provincial strategy, and we're connected to obviously all national law enforcement agencies in Canada and North America, but also through Interpol and the like, we were able to eventually work out to, I saw the business, the actual physical address where this whole thing emanated from. And it was this big building on a given street. And that's, so when I'm talking to my Interpol contact, that's exactly what they said. Oh, this is what they do. And it was a 4 or 5 story building, and everybody in that building was honed in on hacking individuals, doing whatever they could to exploit them and take money from them. We had a lot out of Nigeria over the previous years. That's since been stopped. And then we had a bunch out of Belgium last year. The Belgian connection was more ransomware. So there are several places in this city, several places in Northern Ontario, where they were infected. Their systems were infected. And what the ransomware did is it didn't take their information. All it did is it locked it up. So it infected their system with a virus that basically locked everything into a container, and they needed a key, a passcode in order to unzip it. And in order to get that key, you had to pay that company. And I heard different amounts from $10,000 to $100,000. Locally, the 3 places I dealt with were in the $10,000 range. One outfit did pay, and the 2 others did not. I know the one that they were backed up pretty well, so they didn't have any issues getting back up and running. The second one, the gentleman spent at least a couple of weeks getting their system back and going. And the third one, like I said, they did pay that ransomware. They were given a proper key, and they unlocked all their data, and then obviously took steps from there to make sure that their network was secure. So a lot of this business attacks, in that respect, they don't know who they're attacking sometimes. Their job is 5 days a week, 8, 10, 12-hour days, however it might be. And they're sitting there at a computer at a workstation, and that's their job, is just to fire out as many as they can and see what they can bait. It's like fishing. So you can fish for hours. Hopefully you'll catch a bite. And that's how these places work. So sometimes they're going to get a small fish. Sometimes they're going to get a big fish. You had the one presentation or video earlier about the female calling in about the Microsoft, and you have a virus on your computer, and trying to get the guy, the individual, to allow her to interface with his device. And basically once that's happened, then they've taken over your device, and they can do lots of things. They can download basically your whole hard drive and received all your information. So there's lots of that goes on as well. I know individuals that have been hit like that. There's also the less technical one. It's just a phone call in the same respect. We're getting a ton of those on a regular basis. In fact, I get them on my work phone, which is funny because it's a police phone, but I'll get the ones from Canada Revenue Agency saying I'm going to be arrested. There's an arrest warrant for me, and I need to pay some money. And of course, it's not money. It's usually in the form of Apple Card or Google Cards or something to that. It's never money. Sometimes it's cryptocurrency. The ransomware attacks were in cryptocurrency. And that's a whole nother subject in itself, cryptocurrency and the way that works, and the different.
Jack, I have a student with a hand up. Do you mind taking a question?
Sure.
Michelle?
Hi, Jack. I just have a question. When we get emails like that, or it happened to me once where something popped up on my screen and the person that was hacking me, like I could see myself in my screen, right when I turned my computer on. So would you suggest when we get stuff like that, is it okay if we just phone the police department? And I mean, I never do anything wrong. I don't go on any sites, and I don't look at porn, and I don't do anything like that. So what do you suggest that we do if we do get a situation like that? Is it okay to call the police department, or?
You could. The only thing is there's not much most police services are going to do. because the other aspect of that, as a police service, we have to be able to generate an investigation out of that, and there's quite a bit of data we need to do for that. So I guess I'll step back. When I'm doing some of my undercover stuff online, and I'm trying to connect with bad people and do things, there's certain software that I pay for that I have running in the background. It's publicly available software. Don't get me wrong, it's nothing secret, but I need that software in order to do the tracks and traces, in order to even start making a step towards an investigative goal on the end of it. Sometimes just reporting that it happened is probably not going to be worthwhile. It happens so much these days. A lot of the individuals, some of them are just individuals, a lot of the companies that are behind this, the foreign entities, however you want to call it, are using botnets. So when you consider that aspect, they're doing thousands and thousands every hour of those type of communications. And it's difficult.
Should we just like get a new computer? What do you suggest we do? Like if they hack into us and we can't use their computer, like what do we do?
Well, there's two things. From a basic perspective, I would encourage everybody to always run a backup of their computer. So from my work place here, we have a giant server that we all feed into in the tech crime unit, and it's backed up every day at midnight, and we run multiple backups. At home, I just use a little, I can't remember the name of mine offhand, but I also use them at work. Little Ace drives, for example.
Oh, okay.
So little Ace drives are, when you plug them in and into your system, they'll automatically queue up to work as a backup drive.
Oh, okay.
So what happens there is if you get infected or your machine crashes for whatever reason, you can just basically wipe your device, restart again, plug that drive in, it'll repopulate, and you're back to where you were.
Okay, good. I didn't know about that little device that you had. That's good. I'm going to get one of those. Thank you, sir.
And a lot of the, any big store, Best Buy, Walmart, any of those stores are going to have a backup drive like that. The only thing you have to be mindful of these days is the size of your device. So many computers now are 1 or 2 terabytes easily. And you have to make sure that the backup drive you're going to get is going to be requisite to your device.
Okay.
It's going to be big enough to capture all the data that's in there.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Just trying, losing track there what I was doing. Well, actually, for an example, that's an issue I'm having right now on one of my workstations. I have 2 different laptops that I use for this kind of stuff. One did get infected because one of the things that I do on a regular basis is that we'll get a complaint in about somebody being defrauded. I'll go on to that. I'll try to attack that website myself. And oftentimes in the process, my machine gets infected. So I know that one of the devices that I use, I don't load any personal items on it at all. And I wipe it on a regular basis. And in this case, it got totally infected, and I've been spending about a week trying to get it re-going again, using my different backup systems. When you buy a device, usually it's going to advise you to create a backup disk, or a backup disk is getting to be old school, but even onto a USB stick where it's all your backup files for your operating systems. And those are important to do. A lot of people just kind of ignore them when they first get their device. Those are important because when your system does go down, you're going to need that in order to repopulate your device. There are some advantages to different technology. And I don't mean to use this as a platform to promote anything more than the other, because all the manufacturers are getting to that point. But I know for a lot of my stuff, I use Apple. And the reason I use Apple, because their iOS, which is their operating system, is quite unique and quite secure. I know I look at it from our perspective of when we're trying to do forensic examinations from a crime or some sort, we have to, and there's some circumstances we just can't get into the drives and into the devices. Most of the time we can. Almost every other kind of device we can. Samsung's getting up there, and there's a few others. But we kind of look at that technology and where things are at. And a big part about Apple is the cloud-based stuff. So whenever if you were to get rid of one device and plug into another device, you basically plug in your iCloud account, and then it repopulates that device as to where you were with your old one. That being said, it goes back to some of your previous conversations about password security. So for example, they were talking earlier about a password manager. Apple devices have their own keychain access tool, which allows for that password memory. I use a different one. I use a software called LastPass, and manages all my all my passwords and all my profiles. That being said, you usually only need one username and password to get into that manager. So you have to be mindful of that. You want to change that on a regular basis, and make sure that you're not going to be exposing that anywhere. Is that a hand up?
No, I don't see one.
Okay. And that's a big portion of what happens, what we see in some of our situations where people are complaining to us that they've been hacked or defrauded of something. And we, in the circumstances where it's truly happened, we'll go in and we'll have a discussion with them, and we'll usually find out that their passwords are not very robust. 1, 2, 3, 4, stuff like those. You just can't do that these days. I mean, I don't know how many times we've been at a crime scene where we're seizing devices, something's locked, and then all we do is punch in 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're in. Stuff like that. Or password is your password. That's another common one. There's all sorts of different variations out there. You want to make sure you use the best of technology to your advantage as well. So the longer your password and the more encrypted it is, so using different, not just numbers, but using letters, capitalizing, and then using other different symbols in there will help make that secure. Yeah, that's a huge portion to play. Any questions so far on any of this stuff?
All right, guys, so there we go. So Carrie?
I actually have a question on the criminality thing and being a parent of 2 preteens. When it comes to youth and people that are underage, and with the whole sexting or sending images, do police have the right to search the phones of minors? That there is a question of not necessarily adults are involved within indiscreet imaging of each other? I guess, am I asking that?
I guess I'll kind of explore the topic from 2 avenues. There's 2 types of criminal offenses that are kind of going on there. The first one is intimate images. And under the criminal code, changed in I think 2015 with Bill C-31. So the code now defines what intimate images are. And that's an important aspect because it basically says that any, and these are just adults, they can share images with each other without an issue. It's not any kind of criminal offense. Where the offense is going to jump in is that if 2 people are sharing images, and then one of those individuals decides to share it with other people without somebody's permission. That becomes an intimate image offense, and that's where things get quite difficult. The unfortunate part is, from my perspective, it happens a ton. It's probably safe to say I would see it weekly in my office. We lay charges on it on a regular basis, and it's unfortunate. The bad part about it is, even from an intimate image perspective, there's often internet sites and boards that are up there where people commonly post this stuff on a regular basis. So I chased around one gentleman there for over a year, and I'm probably going to be chasing him around again soon because he's back out. And he basically stole images of a female that he knew, and not somebody he dated, and not somebody that she shared images with. He just managed to get on her computer one day and steal the images, and he began posting them on this board, on this internet board on a regular basis, and obviously embarrassing her to no end. And then he, at the same respect, he would advise all these people of these images being up, and then people would obviously go and look at them. So that's the intimate image perspective. The other aspect is when you start getting into people that are under 18 years of age. Now, from a local perspective, we're not really pursuing anybody. So if you have two 16-year-olds sharing images, we're not going to pursue child pornography charges, even though by definition it is an offense. Because child pornography is an offense where anybody is under the age of 18 years. And in Canada, they don't have to be nude. They can even have clothing on. In fact, there's even a finding as to a young infant being in a diaper could be child pornography, depending on the circumstances of how it's interpreted. One image isn't going to do it, but obviously in the context of other material, it probably would be, and given the right circumstances. So getting back to what I was saying, so you have two 16-year-olds and they're sharing images. That's not going to be any issue. However, it's probably safe to say that most males, when they get involved in this, at some point they end up sharing those images with somebody. That might sound like I'm picking on the male gender, but it's probably more reality than anything else. They're quick to ask for those images. It's usually not long before they acquire those images, and then they're quick to share them, especially when a relationship goes sour, or even sometimes when it doesn't go sour. What we try to encourage from the police perspective is to keep that line of communication open with your teenagers, with that teenage age group, so that they're willing to talk to you about it. And that's probably the most important thing. 5 years ago, 8 years ago, whatever, we used to give the term that if there's a device or a computer in the home, we wanted it in the living room in a central area where everybody can see what's going on. But now in this day and age, with your handheld devices, I mean, my iPhone is more powerful than a computer I had 5 years ago. So it's difficult to do that, the portability of the device, and you can connect with the same speed over your network than you could over your Wi-Fi. So trying to control that is going to be difficult. So we try to encourage keeping that line of communication open so that when somebody does come into issues, that they're able to talk to somebody, whether it's their mom, their dad, their aunt, their sister, whatever it be, and explain the circumstances of what happened, and then we can make efforts to try and do something about that. Especially if it's child pornography related, we can usually make big giant steps in getting that material removed. And we also work with a number of agencies, one being the Canadian Center for Child Protection. They have a platform they call Project Arachnid, and it constantly scrubs the internet for known images. Now, these are going to be child pornography images, but obviously any images of anybody under 18 is now child pornography. So I know I have uploaded a number of that age group of intimate images, probably in that 15 to 18 age group, and they're out there, and Arachnid's constantly scrubbing for those images. When it does find them, they put a cease and desist request towards that company. And I'm told like 98, 99% of the time that company complies. So I don't know if that answers your question. I kind of go off on a tangent there, but.
Pretty much just the last little piece there, just around consent with parents. Can a minor say, okay, even though the parent has given consent, that they object to it? Is their voice respected to not giving consent of such things? And in reverse, I guess, too, if you need a parent's consent. Yeah.
If that individual has a right to that device, care and control that device, we're going to treat it under the circumstance that they can withdraw consent. So you, as a parent, may have purchased a device for them. You give your child a device to use. They're 15, 16 years of age. Something goes sideways, and you call the police and you want us to see what's on that device. If that individual says they don't want to, we can't necessarily just look at it without their consent. However, there are other avenues around that, and obviously one avenue is by way of a search warrant. So that's one of my fortes. I probably, in some weeks, I'm writing 5, 6, 8 search warrants a week in order for us to access different devices. It's quite common these days for us to, almost every major investigation is to seize a device, usually at least a cell phone, if not a computer. And oftentimes we're seizing those devices without somebody's consent. And we might not even be sure about the owner of that device, whether they're going to have any kind of involvement with any crime. So right off the bat, we don't even consider consent, and we go to right to a search warrant, and then we're covered right to the very end. So that's an important part to consider for us.
Thank you, Jack. William, you had your hand up?
Yep. Hello.
Yep.
Yeah, just kind of wondering, like, with the Sioux being, 65, 70,000 people strong on any kind of given week, what the day in a work life would be for you, if that even kind of would work, because you're probably changing things every other day. Just kind of wondering what that would be like in the unit that you're running.
Well, to be honest, I find it really hectic at times. Today is a day, for example. I started at 7 this morning. I had planned to go home for the afternoon and do some stuff at home and then come back this evening. And something came in this afternoon, and actually 2 things came in. And I've been here since. I went home for about an hour and a half at supper, and I know I'm going to be here most of the day tomorrow. But what I'm probably going to do tomorrow is I'm going to drop in the office for about an hour and a half, grab what I can, and then disappear with my laptop and some files, because I got about 3 search warrants to write for next week. So it's quite busy. Every office that I know of that does this tech stuff, we're in that same kind of boat right now. I'm budgeting for a 4th member to come in here. I've been told I'm going to get one on a part-time basis. I've never not done something, but sometimes it's going to wait a long time before we get to it. So I have about 6 cases right now that are from last summer. They're going to get done. The nice part about this field is it works in certainties. So it's not, we're working in IP addresses, ISPs, records, documents. That stuff doesn't go away. It's always going to be there. It's always going to be constant. And we can still knock on your door a year from now if we need to. So that's the nice part about it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, Jack, did you have anything else to tell us?
I don't know what else. I mean, that like I was telling you when we first started chatting, this field in general can be so huge, and there's so many aspects to it. Like in my office here, we all have our specialties. 2 of my guys are computer forensic specialists, so they know how to take stuff apart and put it back together and do all your online pulling in your cloud investigations. I do a lot of the online stuff, the getting the search warrants and the production orders together and gathering that data, and then I shove it onto the next team for them to do other stuff. So it's quite a robust field, and there's so many different avenues. So today, from right off the bat, I was dealing with some items from last year, drug related, and we're dealing with different devices, and we're tying in different suspects in it. Then I went to, I got a referral from Alberta for some child exploitation, and a live target here that I'm going to be working on the next few days. And I've also got another live one from Ottawa in the same respect from last week that I'm starting to push through. And then we had a local one here this afternoon that popped up for some threats being made online and some material that way. So that wasn't as big of a responsibility, but I did have to pull a lot of data and do a lot of research on an individual. So it's quite vast, and especially when you get into summer and everybody starts disappearing on you.
Huh. Valerie, your hand's up.
Yeah, sorry. I had to step away briefly, so I wasn't able to ask it earlier. But my question was actually based on, well, it was a previous situation that I talked about in class with my daughter and Snapchat. So maybe I missed it when I stepped away, but is there a way to find previous messages sent through Snapchat by an individual to other people without like the screenshot or whatever? And I asked this based on a personal situation.
It's difficult to comment on a specific situation without seeing the dynamics of it. But I've had a number of investigations. So there's a couple aspects you have to consider. Is most of those social media providers, and Snapchat is obviously one of them, are all out of Canada. A lot of them are US-based entities. So that limits on our ability from Canada to acquire data from them. Most of those companies do store that data. And I can say, for example, Snapchat, I know they do store data. Typically, on an everyday basis, we can't acquire that data. I can use a production order and I can get non-content data. So I can get IP log, subscriber information, contact details, pay structures. There's about a list of 12 different things, but I can't get content. That being said, if it starts being a child exploitation matter, I now have the resources of the Department of Homeland Security. That's a phone call away for me. It's a one-page document for them, which a search warrant here in this city, for example, my average one is about 28 to 50 pages. It's a one-page document for most US-based entities. And the Department of Homeland Security will subpoena Snapchat, and like that, they now have to provide all that content to us. So it all depends on the avenue. On your device, for example, though, if you want to talk specific Snapchat, yeah, Snapchat, if you're not familiar, if you're chatting with somebody else and that other person decides to screenshot the image you just sent, oftentimes you'll be notified that that screenshot occurred. However, there are a number of applications that can also run on your phone as well that's going to do that for you. That's going to grab that snapshot, and you're not going to get notified that happened. And that happens a lot with the previous topic there about intimate images. So a younger generation, they tend to use Snapchat a lot. And obviously it's the 7-second rule, right? That image is going to be up for 7 seconds or whatever I think it is. And then the girl usually sends the image, and I'm going to say it that way because that's usually how it happens. And the guy's going to screenshot it. Sometimes they're going to use those other applications. They're going to grab that image. The girl is not going to know. There's no notification on her end. And you may never know until that device is looked at. So that's one thing you have to consider. A lot of the other platforms don't scrub for that content. So I guess I'll get into that for a short minute, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay. So a lot of the social media platforms, Snapchat, for example, there's that 7-second rule. The image disappears. You can hold chat content and be able to acquire that. Facebook, Snapchat's used by a younger crowd. Facebook is used by an older crowd, but not exclusively. Everybody tends to use Facebook in this area of the country. But Facebook is now to the point where they're not scrubbing their content as much. They still have algorithms running in the background that are going to detect nudity, child pornography, those kind of things, and not allow it to be up on the platform. And that's why sometimes you'll go to upload a photo and it takes a few seconds and it feels like, oh, maybe it's just your connection. It's part of it is not your connection. Part of it is their network, their algorithms scrubbing that image, pulling all the metadata off the image, which is the metadata is all the information that's hidden within that image that says location, date, time, device used to take the picture. So Facebook does it, Instagram does it, and they pull all that data off it, and then they'll eventually put it onto their platform if it meets the specs of their algorithms. So Instagram is owned by Facebook, runs under the same principles. And they're, like I said, they're all US-based companies. Now, Kik was in Canada, was out of Windsor, actually, for many years. It just got bought out, and it's now a US-based company. But Kik was local, and for the most part, in fact, I personally knew many of the workers there, and they held data for years. Now, since the American company bought it, they only keep their data for about 90 days. Snapchat's keeping theirs for at least 6 months. Facebook, as long as I put in a preservation for it, they'll hold it forever. Basically, I might have to keep renewing that preservation. Instagram is in the same respect. And that doesn't include what we may get off an individual device. So if we seize a device physically, as long as we keep it away from an internet connection and then away from any possibility of it being erased remotely, we can usually pull all that data from the device with our hardware and software that we run in our office. Did I get off sidetrack again and go on a wrong tangent and not answer your question? I don't know.
That's great. I only have one. We have to stop shortly because we have some more work to do in the class. But one of the things I was saying to the class as we were going through before I discovered that the Sault Ste. Marie Police Service had its own cybercrime unit is I was questioning whether a city of this size would in fact have that kind of a dedicated unit. And do you service other services in the area? How far do you have to go before you'd find another unit of this size carrying on this kind of work?
Well, for the most part, like I said right at the beginning, most of us are child exploitation related. So that's how we get our funding. That's what we're based on. But we all do the same. So we're all doing every kind of investigation. So the next office is in Thunder Bay. There's us, and the next office after that is going to be in Sudbury. Now the OPP obviously have a bigger office, but generally speaking, they're so concentrating down south that oftentimes we'll get investigations up this way, and we'll do it for like our local OPP detachment. We're going to do the investigation for them because we're right here. There's no delay. There's no queue to go in, no backlog, especially if it's an important case, and we can do all their stuff here. As well, I kind of hinted that right at the beginning. So I even cover Northern Michigan. So there's only one agent for the Homeland Security that does investigations in the Upper Peninsula. He's limited on some of his forensic capabilities. He's getting better at his online stuff, but we're constantly helping each other with different things. I run a lot of my peer-to-peer software for him because he doesn't have the platform to do it, and we have the power as well. We have more devices and more server capacity to help him out. So like I said, I also help Homeland Security, Sault Michigan Police. For us, it's borderless. Child exploitation, frauds, all that. It's always borderless.
Have you ever had occasion to assist the Anishinaabe Police Service?
Oh yeah, actually on a regular basis.
Right.
Yes, quite a bit. So yeah.
Makes sense. Okay, so I apologize earlier. I referred to you as constable. You're detective sergeant, so that's important. So if I could get the class to all applaud for this talk, I would. That's not something we get to do so much online. But listen, thank you. Yep, here you go. There's some claps. Anyway, Jack, I really appreciate this. This is a treat for the class and for me. So I thank you very much. It's been very much appreciated.
Not a problem. If you need anything or anybody else runs into anything, don't hesitate to give us a call, and we'll certainly try and help you out as best we can.
Very kind of you. Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Take care.
Take care. Thank you. All right, guys. So we're now going to move into the breakout session. All right. So we're still going to do this. The questions are pretty straightforward. So I think we'll probably only use about 15 minutes for that purpose. So let me break you out and. Again, 5 rooms, and I'll see